Currently logged on users. At this point, we can list users and their group memberships so we can easily locate administrative users. As the next step, we want to find logged-in users that are members of high-value groups, since their credentials will be cached in memory. We could steal the credentials and authenticate as them. If we succeed in compromising one of the domain admins, we could eventually take over the entire domain. If we can't immediately compromise one of the domain admins, we must compromise other accounts or machines to eventually gain that level of access. For example, Bob is logged into client 512 and is a local administrator on all workstations. Alice is logged into client 621 and is a local administrator on all servers. Finally, Jeff is logged into server 21 and is a member of the domain admins group. If we manage to compromise Bob's account, we could pivot from client 512 to target Alice on client 621. By extension, we may be able to pivot again to compromise Jeff on server 21, gaining domain access. In this type of scenario, we must tailor our enumeration to consider not only domain admins, but also potential avenues of chained compromise, including a hunt for a so-called derivative local admin. To do so, let's determine how we can get a list of logged-on users on a target. We can either directly look for a user logged into a computer, or we could track any active logon sessions towards a domain controller or file server. The two most reliable Windows functions that can help us find this information are the net workstation user enum and net session enum APIs. While net workstation user enum requires administrative permissions and returns the list of all users logged into a target workstation, net session enum can be used as a regular domain user and returns a list of active user sessions on servers such as file servers or domain controllers. After compromising a domain machine, we should enumerate every computer in the domain and then use net workstation user enum against the list of computers we find. Alternatively, we could try and find the domain controllers and any potential file servers in the network and use net session enum against these servers in order to enumerate all active users' sessions. However, keep in mind that the results from these two APIs will vary depending on the permissions of the current user and the configuration of the domain environment. As a very basic example, we'll use the net workstation user enum API to enumerate local users on the Windows 10 client machine and net session enum to enumerate the user's active sessions on the domain controller. Calling an operating system API from PowerShell is not completely straightforward. Fortunately, researchers have come up with a technique which simplifies the process. The most common solution is the use of PowerView, a PowerShell script that is part of the PowerShell Empire framework. The PowerView script is already on the Windows 10 client. To use it, we must first import it. PowerView is quite large, but we'll only use the getNetLoggedOn function to invoke net workstation user enum and the getNetSession function to invoke net session enum. First, we'll enumerate logged-in users with getNetLoggedOn, along with the -computername option to specify the target machine, which in this case is the Windows 10 client. The output reveals the expected OffSec user account. Next, let's try to enumerate active sessions on the domain controller DC01. Remember that these sessions are performed against the domain controller when a user logs on, but originate from a specific workstation or server, which is the information we're trying to find. We can invoke the getNetSession function, again using the -computername flag, this time targeting the domain controller. This function will return all active sessions. As expected, the OffSec user has an active session on the domain controller from the Windows 10 client due to an active login. The information obtained from the two APIs ended up being the same, since we're targeting only a single machine, which also happens to be the one we are executing our script from. In a real Active Directory infrastructure, however, the information gained using each API might differ. Now that we can enumerate group membership and determine which machines users are currently logged into, we have the basic skills needed to begin compromising user accounts with the goal of obtaining domain administrative privileges.